talkradio.nyc.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Marsanico. Today is Wednesday, October 23, 2024, the debut of my broadcast, The A Train to Sedona. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a book I wrote, a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. In my book, I share my failures and successes on this journey. And I wrote the book in the hope that my experiences will make your experiences easier. In New York City, the A train is an express train, so hop on board. I have a free gift for you, Higher Vibration Cheat Sheet, with 7 tips on how to raise your vibration. Here's a sample. Tip number 1, embrace the present moment. Learn how to tune out distraction and connect with the voice of Creator, enhancing your spiritual journey. There are exercises to guide each of the 7 tips. You can download the free gift from my website, lindamarsanico.com. When we are loving and compassionate, I believe we are spiritual. As we embrace spirituality, our perspective expands. We discover new possibilities, and we are open to practices and ideas which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who will highlight these practices. I have 2 disclaimers. This broadcast does not establish any professional relationship. The opinions expressed on this broadcast do not represent Talk Radio New York City. Today's guest is Catharine Allan. Catharine is the author of 3 books, Divination Rules, Vibes from the Other Side, and A Little Bit of Intuition. She has taught courses on intuition, tarot, astrology, and their applications to the healing process with the Edgar Cayce Center in New York City, the London College of Psychic Studies, and McGill University. She was a resident medium at Le Mélange Magique for nearly 15 years in Montreal and created a successful psychic development program. She can facilitate events as she did for the Montreal Healing Arts Society and various therapeutic settings. She holds her Reiki 2 training and combines this with her own experience of shamanism. Quote, I am the hybrid of compassionate medium, clairvoyant, social worker, and healer, end of quote. She is also a singer, costume designer, cat lover, and Monty Python fan. Welcome, Catharine. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for having me today.
I'm so glad to have you join me. I wonder if you would tell us how your journey to where you are today started.
Well, it's sort of like a lifelong story, really, because I really believe now that I've been empathic since I'm very little, you know. So, but being an empath in a time when we didn't have any of this language, you know, or access to learning some of these tools, meant that I was just sort of feeling pretty misunderstood and frustrated, to be honest. But there was always a part of me that knew that what I saw or sensed was not wrong, but I was, you know, discouraged that other people around me couldn't validate it.
Yes.
And then tried to, you know, argue you out of it. So, you know, without getting into too much detail, that explains a lot of the friction, let's just say, with family or friends, because there was always stuff that was just really, to me, obvious. So a lot of lessons about that, right? Like, what I see might be obvious to me, but it's not to someone else, then it can trigger them, and then you're in a mess. So when this really began, I started to be able to predict things and be able to, you know, show people that I was right about it, probably in high school. But I started to study, I found the astrology section one day in the shopping mall when we were all split up shopping for Christmas or whatever. And it's one of those moments I'll never, you know, it's frozen in my mind. I remember the day I saw a book on astrology on a top shelf and was like almost nervous someone was watching, you know, we're gonna find out that I was looking at this. But I just studied it on my own, and I observed people for years before I met a mentor. And we'll just tell that little story because that's sort of cool. So but my life just rolls with all these kinds of stories, how it all evolved. But I moved to Montreal in 1991. I was going to study interior design. I met a Greek boyfriend, even though I'm in Montreal and everyone said I should get a French one. I kept meeting Greek guys. So there I was. And he brought me to this shop that a few years down the road, ended up working for 15 years. And he told me, oh, you have to meet my friend Miriam. She loves astrology and she loves art like you. And I said, okay. And he worked at a 7-Eleven type place in the night shift and dragged me over there in the middle of the night because she would do the baking at 4 a.m. because I had to meet her. Okay. So I didn't get to meet her. She was too busy, but I saw her and said hello. And then literally like 2 or 3 weeks later, I was on my back balcony and someone stepped out beside me, and she was my next door neighbor.
Isn't that
amazing? She mentored me in astrology and cooking and art and all kinds of stuff. So it's really, I've had a lot of those very synchronistic sort of moments where you just say yes, you know, or you're open to the unconventional, and then that takes you to another level.
So your Greek boyfriend was the connection to this woman. One of his purposes was to bring you to her.
Yes, oh yes, he was catalytic in many, many ways. Yeah. He had tarot cards and brought them out. I'd never seen them in my life, and I never put them down afterwards. So it's,
What is a shaman?
So a shaman is somebody that will is able to take on the physical, emotional, spiritual energy of another, and they know how to transmute it and release it. So, you know, all of us, if we're sensitive a bit, are going to pick up other people's energy. Think of sitting beside somebody on the bus that you're like, you don't feel comfortable sitting beside them. You feel physically achy or whatever. You're just like, you got to get out of there. So you're starting to absorb their energy. Right? But a shaman is going to do it on a deeper level, and often with like a vision of, you know, being able to scan the body physically, internally, and the aura, and see if there's any impurities, imbalances. Those can you know, so some people, the shaman will take it on, like literally they will feel, if you've got a stomach ulcer, they'll feel it too, and then they try to release it from their physical system. Other times it's like metaphoric. We see energy cords and lines and other around your aura that we can also work with and remove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and that's the extent that I do, because the mediumship clairvoyance led me to, and the Reiki led me to seeing and working on that level. But people who have trained in shamanism will do other very specific rituals, like literally sort of facing your death kind of rituals. Some actually do like you're buried alive, which is pretty terrifying. Yeah, I know. Some go really far into so yeah, I was only comfortable to sort of stay with this level, but there's an amazing amount that can be healed on this level. Yeah.
So is the shaman concerned with cutting his or her own cords because they're taking in energy from so many sources? Is it incumbent upon them to work at that, or how do they do that?
Yeah. Well, there's, it depends on what you've picked up. Some things it's easier than others to sometimes just visualizing light around you or different colors is enough
Mm-hmm.
to protect you from absorbing. Or some, they have particular ways they visualize or say prayer for where this energy is going to go from you, from that person to you, and or directly up to source. Or I met one guy that had a particular one that that I liked, that he said all energies coming from that I'm picking up, let them go back to source and be retrained in the light.
That's a beautiful statement.
That's a beautiful one. Yeah. And that helped me a lot, because sometimes I was like, well, okay, I can sense it and I know that I need to remove it, but where do I send it? Because I don't want it to harm anything else. So I love that. Other people might work with, if they work with other deities or angels or whatever they feel is powerful enough to take it away. Some people will, yeah. I think it's harder if you've really absorbed something from somebody physically to shake that off. I find it can take a lot of extra work to even realize, like, no, that's not my headache. Like, that didn't happen until I sat down with this person. That's not me. And
Yes.
like, as soon as you realize that it isn't yours, then that's half the battle to releasing the energy.
I've had that happen. A day where I was just feeling encumbered by so much. And I thought, this isn't about me. This can't
Mm-hmm.
be about me, the level of this disruption. And I prayed and meditated and worked to let it go. And it finally left. But it takes some discernment, some knowing yourself to be able to
Yes, it
do that.
does. Yes, it really does. And I think we're all feeling like a buildup of incredible pressure right now before we wait for this election and what's going to happen too, right? You can feel like something just sort of rising and pressure building, and we're all waiting. And that, like, that creates all kinds of things for everybody,
Yes, people
you
talk
know.
about it. I feel it. It's a fear, I think,
Mm-hmm.
fear that we all have. Many of us, not everyone. And
Yeah.
we have about half a minute to break, but I work not to dwell there. So
Mm-hmm.
I move to the present moment. Tip number one, be in the present moment and
Yes,
negative to
exactly.
the outside.
Yes.
um, Very handy tool. So we will be coming back after this break. And I want to ask you just a little bit about love and compassion, because that's the theme. And then after that, we're going to get into divination rules, etc. So
Sounds great.
we have a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so here we are going into a break anytime now. Um, And as I wait, I don't see your darling cat anymore. Has she or he
Yeah.
left?
It's a small place, but she has her little spots. I'm not sure. She
Oh,
likes to sleep in the shower stall for some reason.
okay. That's very cute. So, Jess, take it away. We're getting to our break now.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
So we're returning now to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, Catharine Allan. And I'd like to ask you, Catharine, how are you loving and compassionate in your life?
My goodness, what a chunky question. Well, again, I feel like I've just always been that person. But let's just say, maybe the height of when I was living that was when I was at this, working at this store downtown, the Mélange Magique. It was like a pagan new age self-help store before everything, divided up into little niches. We had all of it there. So we had anybody and everybody coming in there, like scared, coming out of the closet to do spiritual stuff, or like a place to talk, a place to do workshops, a place to. So it was really a community, and a lot of people were very vulnerable. And, so I think I just played some sort of mother role to the community there, and I looked up all kinds of resources that people would need. I did extra, training and stuff to make sure that I was being helpful with mental health or addiction or everything. But, I was also giving out hugs if somebody was having a hard time,
Hugs are
yeah, no, I'm always in that role. Yeah.
So you wrote a book, you wrote a number of books, but your current book is Divination Rules. Would
Yes.
you say what divination is?
Yeah. It's really a umbrella term because divination, it applies to anything from, reading the stars with astrology, to tarot cards, to tea leaves, to the I Ching in China, to coffee grinds, reading Turkish coffee, and even again, some tribes that would have just paid attention to the way the birds are flying, and that would have been a prediction. So it's really a broad term for how we connect to some sort of cosmic energy, and the signs and symbols we read it through, and they all have a different language and a different way they're speaking to us, and they're ancient. There's always been some. Every culture has some form of it, and then religion comes along and changes the course of history with a lot of things, depending where and when. But there's always been some form of divination in every culture. So to me, it's anthropological as well. It's not, yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
game, you know.
Yes, I read some of your book and I am amazed at how ancient it is. And so can you give us some historic and modern examples of divination? Now, I know you gave us some. Are there any historic ones or anything that you've left out?
Well, there's so many, but the one that's you know, of note would have been bibliomancy.
Say it again.
Bibliomancy.
Oh.
So bibliomancy is when you go to a book and you focus on a question and you either randomly flip it open and put your finger on a line and that's your message. Or some people might hear a number and they go to that page with that line.
Yeah.
And people used to do that with Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. So that's going way back, that people lined up to access the book and get a message for their lives, you know? Yeah, and you know, well, you know, astrology is a long history too, very long history.
Mm.
You know, what we know now today with full charts and planets and stuff, I mean, and interpretations, it's all been, it all started really with people observing the stars for centuries and noticing patterns. So it's a very long evolution. And then of course, different cultures, like Vedic is in India, slightly different than the Western and the Greek. But yeah, I mean, sometimes when I would teach astrology, I would try to tell everyone, turn off your phones, turn off the lights, you know, and bring them into a meditation. And you know, you're out on the water in a boat and it's nighttime and you don't know where you are. And then I would ask them to, like, imagine you're looking up now. All you have is the stars to navigate by and the moon. This is how primal it is, really, the study of astrology and astronomy. That's all we would have had. You know, and so many mythologies are based on, you know, the patterns or the behavior of the Nile, or the cycles of the moon and what they noticed, the energies that they felt around certain times of year. And then it develops much later into personality traits and breaking it down into much more detail as we have more science. But yeah, I like to try to get across just how primal this is, which is why when people say, why do people believe astrology? Well, it's a primal instinct. The moon, imagine if it went dark, how scary that would be. You know, the eclipse, a lot of animals were freaking out on that eclipse, that solar eclipse in April.
Yes.
We know it's going to come back. It's a show.
Yeah.
But, you know, instinctively, if your body of light or source of water changes, oh no, right? Your survival's at stake. So this led to whatever things people use to try to predict with, you know, throwing bones into fire and throwing bones and looking at formations. And does it point somewhere? Does it give a message? The tea leaves, reading the teacups, seeing symbols in the tea. Yeah, and the I Ching, well, that's, I forget what dynasty that starts, but it's definitely thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, the legend is, you know, a turtle crawled out of the water with the bagua, the symbols, the 9 symbols on its back, on the back of its shell. And this is the basis for the I Ching, but also the Feng Shui, and also that extends to the Chinese medicine. The whole system is on that.
Amazing.
So it's, yeah. And then you think how far we've come, where we just take for granted a lot of things that are in our culture that actually stemmed from something divinatory. And I find it pretty fascinating.
I didn't realize my practice of opening a book to anywhere was as open as it was. But what I didn't do, what I hadn't done, was put my finger on a certain place, which I have. So I'll take I don't know which book I've done it with, A Course in Miracles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the finger blindly putting it on a certain word or a paragraph would be very helpful. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm practicing some old divination.
Yes. Yes. Before I even knew what that, that word or that practice, I would instinctively do it when I couldn't decide what book to buy in the bookstore. Sometimes I would pull out the book that I was attracted to and go, okay, if this one is for me, I'm just going to randomly flip and point. And if it speaks to me or moves me, I'm going to buy the book.
Well, I remember getting a book, one of Cryon's books, and
Mm-hmm.
I started to read it and it didn't resonate with me. So I put it on my shelf. And I think either 6 months or a year later, the book was coming out like this. I said, it's time to read The End of Times. And I read it and it meant so much. It was the perfect time for, and just um, miraculous for me. So
Yeah, that's a great feeling, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, when a book really chooses you at the right time and you remember it for life, you're just so ready to drink it in. It's like, that's an amazing feeling.
I remember a story. A woman was walking down the street, a car swerved, and a book fell out. She picked it up, read it. She said, it changed my life. So we take things where they come, right? Universe is always working with us to help us along.
Yes, and there's signs and symbols in daily life, as long as we don't walk around craving everything and everything's a sign, like if you're upset about somebody not calling you back and every 2 minutes there's a sign, then well, maybe not, but once
Yeah.
in a while, like freaky things happen, animal encounters, or like every once in a while, I would just like hearts appear on my path in crazy ways, like might be having you know, a lonely day and the barista has a heart on my coffee. Or
Yes.
one time an acorn just fell before me. I saw a squirrel and I saw this acorn drop and it was split in half and the inside of the acorn had a heart.
Oh
And
my.
I still have it to this day. But I get like they're not it's not supposed to happen to us every day, or it doesn't mean anything. But every so often there are these guideposts or signs that can
Yes.
be very personal to us. And to me, that's still divination. It's personal, but there might be things that happen to each of us that we know, this is a familiar loop. This is a yes or a no for me, to pursue a direction.
So Catherine, we're ready for a break now.
Mm-hmm.
I see it's 2 minutes to break. We're taking a little bit longer. Yes, these signs are little perks along the way, but I do feel we need to be discerning about
Yes.
them. And that takes a while, making mistakes, sometimes misreading something, but with faith and asking for help, because we do have free will. And angels and other beings are not going to connect to us and throw something in our path unless we want it.
Yeah, and we have to be ready, because sometimes how many people do we know that did get a sign or a chance that bypassed it, dismissed
Yeah.
it, were too scared?
Yes.
So a lot of it is a mixture of our own readiness as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm wondering about those people who miss the sign, whether they, in their free will, maybe on a different level, on their unconscious, want it, and then the conscious doesn't want it. That could be. I can't explain that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, as a reader, I can just see so many times when people clearly feel pulled towards a certain path in their lives, but that path would put them in some friction with their family, so they'll never pursue it.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yes.
It's pretty common.
On
Yeah,
that
but
note, on that note, Catherine, excuse me,
yeah.
we need to take a break.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back. I'd ask you to finish your thought, and then we're going to do a tarot reading. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. Take it away.
Are you a high achieving, growth oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills, on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, we're at the A Train to Sedona broadcast with my guest, Catharine Allan. Catharine, would you finish your thought, please?
Yeah, well, you sparked another whole thing in my head. So in my first book, A Little Bit of Intuition, I dive into this more deeply and specifically about, what is your intuition and what is fear, what is projection, and what is fantasy, and how do we discern these signs and symbols and feelings, as being a true intuition or a true sign versus, what we're manufacturing out of our fears or fantasies. So, so if anyone listening needs more help on that, it's sort of a textbook, I think, that I've written on intuition.
Will you say the name again and where they can find it?
Yeah, it's A Little Bit of Intuition, and it was a whole series, A Little Bit of the books, and so they're at every bookstore, Amazon or Waterstones or wherever they're listening from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you ready to conduct a tarot reading?
Yeah, for sure. You have a question in mind today?
I'm blank. Let me think.
It doesn't have to be personal. It could be about people you know or general things about the world.
Well, how about climate change? Is that too
Oh boy.
broad?
Okay. No. In what sense?
How is the progress that we are making as a world?
Okay. All right. So I'm shuffling the cards and then I'll ask you to tell me to stop and then I'll cut them.
You can stop.
All right. Focus on your question of climate change. So the first card is the Knight of Swords, the King of Swords, which is usually a really clever person, experienced, like an academic or intellectual that could represent scientists, but it can also represent powerful men that aren't really operating from their empathy. It could be both. It's someone who's in the head all the time. The second card is Five of Cups, which is disappointment. So, that would lead me to feel like a lot of people who believe in it, as I do, are quite dismayed at that we could be doing a lot more than we are. And then we have the Chariot. Okay, well, that makes sense. The Chariot card is, in case people don't know, there's a charioteer on his wagon, if you will, and there's usually two horses, and he's struggling to keep these horses on the same path. So the Chariot represents somebody who's trying to pull people together and overcome obstacles, which certainly we can relate to that with climate change, with the believers and non-believers, or with big industry versus environmental movements. And then the next card is the Two of Pentacles, which is change itself, which gives me more a feeling of there's things greater than what humans do or don't do. Whether you know, well, you would think that hurricanes like they just had in the south would be enough of a wake-up call. But then you have other people saying it's manufactured on purpose. So it's so that gives me a feeling there's just things that are higher than our own human efforts or logic that are going to decide for us. There is a lot of hope in this reading too, though. There's other cards that show a lot of people who are ready to act and mobilize, and probably more people than we realize if they were given the education and the tools how to shift their lifestyles. But there's also a heck of a lot of inefficiencies and ironies in this whole thing too. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen this documentary called Manufacturing Consent.
I haven't.
And basically she follows places all over the world where there's been either environmental disasters or decimation. And I remember watching it and learning that most of the waste that we produce in North America is put on an oil tanker and sent to China and to a landfill. So how is that environmentally friendly? Right. Do you know what I mean? So the whole recycling thing is sort of a weird catch-22, like, because are we actually recycling or dealing with it like we should? So, and then they want us to buy our bags all the time. Well, now we all have extra bags that don't break down. It's just, there's a lot of, so
it's a complex situation.
It's very complex, yes, and that's why I say, like, the change card has like a snake biting its tail and the yin yang, and it's the cycle of life, and it's sort of, there's things greater than us that will decide what we need to do. Unfortunately, versus right now, there's obviously some crises, but not big enough so we're still bargaining, and some of us don't want to, and some of us are, and we'll send our carbon credits to that country, and we won't deal with it here. But I do think in the face of Milton and other storms and how can we not face certain things that have to be done, like not building condos on swamplands and such, you know?
So overall, though, would you say that it's a sort of a positive reading? Or you just say there was some hope in the reading?
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that are aware and willing to mobilize and educate, but so it would be a mixed bag. There'd be some crisis, of course, but there'd be a lot of people to step in to show us. So, but it's sort of hard to weigh in on an entire planet. I'm
an eternal optimist, a cautious optimist. And I do feel that we're going to work this out. And we have a lot of work to do. I have these cloth bags that I use, and I wash in my wash, and I dry them in the dryer.
Good for you.
I've had them for 15 years. They're absolutely wonderful.
Wow, good for you.
You know, so we all do what we can.
Yeah, and we're coming into the age of Aquarius, where there's going to be a lot more quick innovation in many areas than we've probably ever seen. So some of those will naturally be positive, as well as hopefully, you know, like, I forget who did it, but it was a student who came up with on a project, a science project, with something that helps clear plastic from the ocean. I think it's an arm that Yeah.
There are mushrooms which eat plastic.
Oh,
Can you believe that? Mushrooms which eat plastic.
that's
And
amazing.
yes, and I did see someone on Facebook about 5 years ago creating plastic out of sea creatures, sea materials, whether it was seaweed, I don't remember. Of course, it's as cheap as plastic from fossil fuels, but there are all these innovations. And when does the age of Aquarius begin?
Well, sort of officially the 19th of November.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. So
Yeah, we're in the last pass of Pluto and Capricorn right now. And then it's going to move into Aquarius for the next 20 years.
I'm from the play The Hair. It was the age of Aquarius, and I'm just song right. If I could sing, I would sing it to you. But I want to move on to some questions about your book, because I'm also noting that there are rules for divination, right? So what are the rules?
Well, some of the book is like, rules or tips for different types of divination, but a lot of the beginning rules are actually about ethics. And it's a topic dear to my heart because I don't think enough people in this field talk about ethics. There's no one out there training anybody. Not really. There's no governing board that, like psychology or something, where you step out of line. So there's a lot of people that know they can learn these things quickly and have shiny marketing. And in my opinion, a lot of them don't have counseling skills or ethics. So I wanted to really heavily focus on how to prepare yourself properly to make sure people are centered. But the first rule I have is always ask permission.
That's so important.
Before putting, yeah. Like even some popular TV shows, they're all staged and everything, but still there's an awful lot of this idea that somebody's supposed to walk up to somebody in public and go, "Oh my God, your grandmother's right around you right now." Could you imagine if you're having a horrible day in the grocery store and someone walked up to you and said, "I'm sensing this about you," and it just threw you for a loop? Like, to me, even if it's fun to watch as a TV show, or it might be even accurate, doesn't mean it's ethical. It's very private and very personal what can come up. So some of the other rules are to be mindful of the language you use when you are interpreting things for people. People will be very vulnerable if they've opened themselves up to you, and your languaging is probably going to stick with them. Just like when we're in therapy, it's delicate.
You're a social worker, so you know all about that.
Well, not officially. I'm not officially a social worker. I'm just unofficially. I've been thrust into a position like a social worker for many years, but I'm not officially trained or licensed, no. But I was doing a lot of the similar work just with tarot cards in my hand.
And one must be careful with the language, to be gentle, to be kind. Yeah.
Yes, and positive, like to leave people with hope and like action.
Yeah.
To frame whatever comes up with something proactive. And also I have divination as a sacred practice that should be treated with respect. In our world right now, I just think there's this increasing feeling with everything that it's just transactional, and therefore it misses the meaning and the sacredness, and yet people are craving meaning and sacredness. But if we don't slow down and stop treating everything as like I'll give you this, you give me that, then you're not going to get a sense of meaning. And so even if somebody gave you the most profound message of your life, if you're in the wrong headspace, if you don't see it as sacred, you're not going to really take it in. You won't get that life-changing book moment, right? So, and in that light, if you treat it as sacred, then you realize it's not a way, it should never be used as a way to manipulate or control people. And so I've gone on with a lot of ethical things so that hopefully people understand to come from the right place. And then some of the other rules are maybe the teacher in me, like learn your actual tarot deck before you give a reading. A lot of people buy it at the store. Oh, just read from the book. Okay, that's fair. But again, even if you're doing that for your friend, they still might be really vulnerable. And if you misinterpret what the cards are, or you don't have the experience to frame it in a positive way, and you pull some card you don't understand, you can freak somebody out, which isn't helpful.
Now I want you to hold that thought, and we're
Sure.
going to come back. We're going to a commercial break, and take it away.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be Frank About Health with all of you.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico, the A Train to Sedona, with my guest, Catharine Allan. And Catharine, you were in the middle of talking about know your tarot deck. Just don't buy them from the store and start giving a reading.
Yes. It's tempting to just open some inspirational, beautiful artwork in the deck and start reading from the book and interpreting messages for your friends. But it's still a really delicate thing. If you pick a card, something that's quite potent, like the Death card or the Tower card or something, and you don't really understand the life cycle and what that is, you can scare the crap out of somebody, for no reason. And I do find over the years, a lot of people come back and do tell me, like, I hear you in my head. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I learned early, like I had a big responsibility how I said things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
So there's a question, what is the role of intuition, tarot, astrology, and their application to the healing process?
Yeah. Well, let's start with the intuition one. A lot of the time, we're given, a lot of traditional or classic information about, whether the healing process or your health or your family, or, we've all gone to a doctor that says, oh, well, this is, your levels are normal and you can, you're fine. And and then you go to a naturopath and they'll say, actually, no, that's not really optimal. You're at the low end of something. You might actually need something. And then you go down the rabbit hole, of trying to find supplements or eat differently. And so you're pitted between the medical system and the holistic system. Yeah. So you have to trust your own intuition. How do I feel about taking that medication? How do I feel about taking that herb or supplement? Do I trust? There's always, I think, navigating our health. We have to always, I find anyway. I mean, a lot of people won't. They'll, the doctor is God and they say, take it 3 times a day, you do. But there's a lot of us I know out there that are sensitive, and it's like, yeah, but I don't really need it 3 times a day. I feel better when it's 2. So now I'm again in between the rules and what I feel is right for me. So that's one way that intuition plays a lot in your healing. It'll go against systems like it'll go against the family system sometimes to get better. Your gut is telling you to do something.
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I'm a big believer in that, in trusting your own intuition above anything, and learning to connect to it. When it comes to tarot or astrology or these other arts with your healing, I think they awaken parts of your mind or a perspective that helps you reframe or see your life in a new way. That can be very helpful. And it doesn't matter which one. It's just like learning another symbolic language or spiritual language can help people. So for me, astrology was pivotal because I read about my sign and I was like, oh my God, this is describing me. Like, because I didn't feel anybody was really seeing who I was fully growing up because of these gifts. There was no place to share it. And all of a sudden the description is saying how sensitive and empathic and intuitive and emotional I am and all this. And then I look up my family members and I'm like, oh my Lord, this is so true. And these signs don't really get along that well. Look at that. This was and it just led me to learning more and more. And eventually you learn a lot about psychology, because as every planet has its own symbolism and motivation, and it really helps you look at yourself in that lens. Like, my Mars sign is here. Well, how do I act and react? How do I physically move? What's the best exercise for me? Am I impatient or am I slow? Venus, what do I desire? Oh, well, maybe what if they're opposite each other in the chart? Well, now what? What's that mean about you? So it just led to this huge psychological revelation for me to learn the language of astrology. And tarot, I think, sorry.
Is it your favorite?
Astrology? Oh gosh, it's so hard to say it. They fill different functions. The astrology, I do love it. I think it's what I would still probably know the best or talk about the rest of my life. Tarot, brings you into like another world where you're seeing stuff. You're going deeper into people's lives and predictions, and it can be amazing, but it can also lead to, like I said before, social frictions if people are not happy with what you saw. Yeah. Whereas astrology, I find, like, if you tell people it's more about themselves to chew on, they can take it or leave it, but you'll usually stimulate something where they're wondering and self-reflecting.
Yeah, it seems like these practices move people forward, and they can decide whether to heal or not.
Yes.
They can take what you say, make it their own, see if it resonates. We always have to see if things resonate for us.
Exactly.
And if it resonates, then they can apply it. Or
yes, and often during a tarot reading, some a lot of people that are more, let's say, on their healing journey, if they come, they're not really looking to be told what to do or like predictions. A lot of people are, but a lot of people that are in a different state of mind, they're looking more for affirmation. That it's like, oh, okay, I had that sort of feeling myself about the situation, but I wasn't trusting myself fully. So now you have mirrored that back to me. Thank you. And the tarot and the archetypal, way that works can be really helpful and make people feel like, oh, she doesn't even know me. And the cards just went, yeah, you're right about this. And then that helps people move forward to take action.
Yes. Do you have any advice for people who are learning?
Yeah, I think for most people, when you're learning this at the beginning, it's going to seem pretty overwhelming and also exciting, and you might be a bit obsessive about it while you're learning, which is normal. But at the same time, it's like to still go slowly and really like try to observe your process and observe patterns. And it would be great if you would journal. You can do a reading every day if you're obsessing, but try to write it down and watch what happens instead of taking huge decisions and actions based on your tarot cards every day kind of thing. But I mean, that is part of the learning when we're really young. But if anybody's, yeah, I'm a big believer in just trying to see patterns before you act on things 100%.
Yeah. You're really
So, yeah.
learning discernment, you know.
Yeah, discernment, and that comes from trying things, but also observing things and writing it down or talking to somebody, or
Yeah.
doing mindfulness or meditation practices alongside it, so you stay calm and your nervous system is more grounded. It's as you open yourself up, it is going to be normally intense. Things open and we feel cracked open and we feel more excited, vulnerable, open, more things happen to us, more synchronicities. It can be pretty overwhelming.
Yes.
And so trying to stay grounded is a lot of the battle,
So we have just a few minutes before we've come to the end of the show. It's been so enjoyable. It went
it's flew by.
Is there anything free on your website that our listeners could avail themselves of?
Yeah, sure. I've got, if you go to river-rain.com, and you'll see 5-minute meditations. I've got one that is called Sage and one that is called Cedar. They're about 5 minutes each, and they're two different kinds of medicines. So Sage is more to help you, a meditation to help you cleanse and purify. And the Cedar one, now I'm forgetting because I put them up here a long time ago. There we go.
It sounds so
the Cedar one is more for purification and protection.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are free, but I should create some more free offers as well. I have another longer meditation with Tibetan bowls, but I can't remember if I put it up for free or if it's definitely on my site anyway.
Listeners know how to get to you on your site.
Yes. Thank you. I also, if I could plug, I have a YouTube channel for anyone really interested in astrology.
Yes.
Yeah. Every full moon and new moon, I do a pretty lengthy analysis of the planets, and I give readings for every sign. So
you find it on Facebook, or rather YouTube.
YouTube.
On your name.
Yeah, exactly.
Catharine, it's CATHARINE.
Yes.
ALLAN.
Yes. Teachers as parents, all A's. And this is the A train, so it's sort of funny.
It's cute. I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It was wonderful. And congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say that for next week, I have David McLeod joining me. He is a transformational speaker, a life mastery coach, and author. So for everyone, have a beautiful afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us on this debut of the A Train to Sedona. Engineer, you could take it away.